This is a story about a young man from the countryside who comes to the city with a dream of fulfilling his own mission and that of his father. He is certain that in the city there will be many strong people he can confront and learn from. And so, the main character Jinbei has arrived in Edo City. He was overwhelmed by the scenery of this place and planned to go to a place called Moshibugyo, but he didn't know the way there. He got lost and found that people here were too indifferent to give him any directions. He was fortunately helped by a girl who took him home for a meal. He introduced himself and said that today he would work at Moshibugyo. She introduced herself as Haru and said she lived and worked at this shop with her grandfather. Her parents died early, but she felt that losing relatives in Edo was common. She then gave Jinbei directions. The reason he wanted to join Moshibugyo was because his father was supposed to go, but he could no longer walk well, so Jinbei had to go instead. Haru thought he was quite amazing. She then told him about the history of Moshibugyo, that 10 years ago, a suggestion box was set up to help people get closer to the government. Everyone here wanted to establish this Moshibugyo law enforcement team, and she herself had sent many letters requesting it because people wanted someone to protect them from insects. When Jinbei wondered about the insects, suddenly a nearby resident was attacked by insects. He left his luggage and ran to save the person. He discovered a corpse in the alley and a giant spider eating a resident. He rushed to attack but was thrown off. The Moshibugyo people arrived and the spider left. The man introduced himself as Katori and said he was the head of Moshibugyo. Jinbei said he came to take orders in place of his father, as his father had lost his left leg because of him. Once, the son of a district official was attacked by a giant spider and Jinbei couldn't protect him. When his father came to handle it, the official's son had wet himself, and to protect his son's honor, the official demanded Jinbei take responsibility. His father crippled his own leg to pay the debt for his son and lost his chance for promotion. Suddenly someone came to report that Haru had been captured by a spider, so Jinbei rushed to save her. He arrived just as she was about to be eaten. Jinbei rushed in, cut off the spider's leg, and dodged its web. However, this was a spider nest and the rest appeared. But at this moment, the Moshibugyo people arrived. A girl rushed in throwing bombs, and Katori introduced her as Hibachi, descendant of a ninja clan specializing in explosives. The second person was Shungiku, known as a criminal. The third was Tenma, a young onmyoji. Katori wanted him to leave it to the experts, but he still wanted to fight. He then confronted a spider, but his sword and legs got caught in the web. Haru screamed in fear, making him remember his father's teaching about a true samurai knowing how to protect those behind him. He then rallied his will, drew his sword to block the spider, and apologized for making Haru afraid. He was determined to become the #1 samurai, so he rose up to counter the spider and pushed it away. But when he defeated the first one, an even larger one appeared. Fortunately for him, the strongest member of the law enforcement team arrived and dealt with that spider. Haru thanked him for risking his life to save her. She realized that her and her parents' wish had come true, that the law enforcement team would be able to protect them from insects. Jinbei then ran after and asked for the name of the person who helped him, but he just walked away. We know that person is Mugai and he rarely communicates with others. Katori asked Jinbei about joining the law enforcement team, and he agreed. The next day, Jinbei joined the law enforcement team and began training there. In the morning, he practiced swinging thousands of times and even went to wake Hibachi up for joint practice. But he entered just as she was changing clothes, so he was thrown a bomb. At the meeting, Katori mentioned that they needed to let Jinbei know about the things to do here, and about the judge, the highest authority and the founder of this law enforcement team. The judge has never revealed his identity, and no one has ever seen his face. Jinbei went to greet Mugai, and Hibachi acted just like him. Their mission here is to exterminate the bugs as he saw yesterday, and no one knows where they come from. Suddenly there was an announcement, so the whole group decided to set out, and Katori didn't allow Jinbei to fight, but wanted him to observe. Because no newcomers had lived more than 10 days, and they didn't want to waste time recruiting new people. Although very frustrated at being seen as weak, he had to accept it. While walking with Hibachi, they discussed how strong Mugai was and how much they both admired him. Both had been saved by him, and Jinbei wanted to hear about how Mugai had saved her. She recounted the story of her village, which was a ninja village, but since the samurai came to power, ninjas had lost their status. Her grandfather didn't accept this and continued to practice ninjutsu day and night, and she was the only one who could keep him company. She had learned ninjutsu from him, and one day, Katori came to recruit her. She accepted and told her grandfather, but he was angry, so she left to maintain the village's tradition. On her first mission, she was saved by Mugai and wanted to become as strong as him. Jinbei saw that she was similar to him, so he was eager to become stronger with her. Suddenly, there were screams nearby and corpses everywhere. A dragonfly appeared, and Hibachi knew this type specialized in hunting at night, and was the same kind that attacked her on her first mission. So now she wanted Jinbei to take care of the wounded while she would check the results of her training. She rushed to throw bombs at the dragonfly, but it wasn't enough. She was pushed into the water and couldn't detonate the bombs, so Jinbei rushed in to support her. He didn't use his sword, but would still try to help her. However, she wanted to defeat it herself to prove herself to Mugai, but he thought this wasn't the place for her to show off her talents, so she agreed to cooperate. He then used his sword to swap the dragonfly up for Hibachi to handle. She successfully sliced it to pieces and returned victorious. In the evening, Jinbei prepared hot water for her to bathe, and she remembered that she had hidden from Katori that Jinbei had used his sword, because he hadn't drawn it, so it was temporarily accepted. He asked about her technique and learned its name. He was quite surprised, so he jumped up and accidentally peeped, resulting in him getting a few more bombs. The next morning, Jinbei continued to practice swordsmanship and tried to cut through this rock. But no matter how he slashed, it was useless. However, Shungiku passed by and hit his face on the rock, so he ruthlessly cut the rock and Hibachi's things into pieces. But Jinbei admired how he could easily cut the rock with that chipped sword. He accepted him as his master and followed him all day. But the people scorned and hated him just because he was a criminal. He wanted Jinbei to stay away, or he would be hated too. But Jinbei didn't care. They went on patrol and learned about recent robberies of wealthy people's houses. The culprit always left a hole with sharp cuts on the wall. Shungiku joked that he did it, but he never robbed, though he did kill. In the evening, they finished patrolling and Shungiku went to drink, while Jinbei went to Haru's shop for dinner. Both she and her grandfather were very warm towards Jinbei, and the grandfather noticed that his granddaughter seemed to have fallen in love. Suddenly someone reported a robbery, so Jinbei ran to see and found Shungiku at the scene with a bloody sword. He was arrested and taken to jail, and Jinbei wanted to find a way to prove Shungiku's innocence. But unless he had a good reason, he would never be released. He then returned to ask Katori for help, but he couldn't do it because they would be seen as abusing power by the people. Angry, he ran to saw open the jail to rescue Shungiku. Shungiku wanted him to stop doing stupid things, but when he heard that Jinbei chose to believe him, he took the saw and cut through the cage to escape. They were quickly hunted while Katori went to find the judge and informed him about Shungiku's background. He was the son of a notorious gang leader, but he couldn't kill people as his father ordered, so he was despised by his father. But his mother was kind, so he seemed to inherit her personality, and he had promised his mother that he would never kill. However, one day, when he returned home, he discovered his mother was severely injured and his father was by her side. Thinking his father had harmed his mother, he went on a rampage and slaughtered the entire gang. From then on, he decided to deal with anyone who dared to stand in his way. He had killed a total of 99 people and was called the 99 Killer. The officials surrounded both of them, and Jinbei stood up to explain for Shungiku. But at this moment, the bugs appeared. This time it was mantises, and they cut Jinbei's sword in half with just one strike. Shungiku asked Jinbei to evacuate the civilians. He and the officials helped people evacuate while Shungiku dealt with the mantizes alone. However, the officials still took the chance to attack him sneakily. At this time, Mugai met an old teammate of his. Previously, he was a member of the Insect Hunters Association but had left it. Shungiku was seriously injured after the sneak attack just now. He was about to kill these two officials, but Jinbei came to block the attack for them. He still spoke up to explain for Shungiku. Actually, years ago, Shungiku had misunderstood his father. Kotori had informed him that it was the Insect Hunters Association that had killed his mother. Nevertheless, the officials still hated him for killing their comrades. Jinbei still chose to believe in the current him. They then split up to deal with one bug each. Shungiku effortlessly sliced one to pieces while Jinbei successfully used his blunt sword to block attacks from the mantis and let Shungiku finish it off. They dropped a pile of gold, and it seemed they were the ones who had caused the recent robberies. He then explained the reason he was at the scene earlier was because he accidentally stepped on a dog's tail while drunk, was chased there, and picked up a bloody sword. He knew it was hard to believe, but Jinbei still believed him, so he invited him for a drink. Jinbei wanted to become a samurai like him, but he still saw himself as just a murderer. Not long after, the town was attacked by a giant bug, and Hibachi and Shungiku kept arguing about who had the right to deal with it. Their argument only gave the bug more time to wreak havoc, so Tenma had to summon two divine spirits to handle it and create an opportunity for Jinbei to finish it off. They successfully eliminated the threat, and Tenma received a lot of praise. This made Tenma look down on the other two, seemingly angering them. Jinbei wanted to speak up for them, but got hit unfairly. In the evening, Jinbei continued to train. The others had their own private matters. Only Tenma seemed autistic, just eating dinner and talking to the paper dolls of his parents, as he only had these two paper figures as companions. Tenma saw daily effort as a goal to strive for. Suddenly, Tenma saw a centipede and screamed loudly, causing Jinbei to come check. At first, Jinbei thought Tenma was afraid of the ghost in the book, but after inquiring about everything, he realized Tenma was reacting to the centipede and learned that the boy was afraid of long-bodied insects. When he was young, Tenma had witnessed an entire orange tree being eaten by worms without a single fruit left. Tenma didn't dare tell this to anyone. Although he knew it would affect his work, the boy wanted to overcome it himself. That was the path to becoming a true onmyoji and making his parents proud. Jinbei admired Tenma and promised to keep the secret, but unfortunately, the two troublemakers outside had overheard and predicted that the near future wouldn't be peaceful at all. The next morning, Jinbei came to call Tenma for training to overcome his fear. They sneaked behind the warehouse because fewer people came there. Jinbei used worms and stood from afar, then slowly approached to test Tenma. From a distance, he wasn't afraid, but when close, the boy was so scared he hid under the house. Suddenly, the two troublemakers came and pretended to know nothing. They gave Tenma a bag, and when he opened it, it was full of centipedes. Tenma thought Jinbei had betrayed him by telling these two and ran away. Jinbei was very upset, but he had no authority to threaten the other two. However, hearing Jinbei speak to their faces and then run to find Tenma made them feel a bit guilty. Tenma later met a boy he had encountered in the previous battle. The boy greatly admired Tenma and even drew two paper dolls for Tenma to see. Jinbei was feeling more at ease when Haru suddenly ran over to report that insects were coming. The other two had already gone to battle, and Jinbei and Tenma arrived later. Tenma was shocked when the enemy this time was a giant centipede. Everyone understood Tenma's situation and told him to stay back and not push himself too hard. Tenma still wanted to help, so he summoned two divine spirits to attack. But his fear made him weak, and he became an obstacle. Tenma then had to encourage himself and decided to move forward and use the divine spirits to make the centipede fly up for everyone to handle. The boy then gradually gained confidence to approach and hit the centipede. Jinbei tried to encourage him, but was called a traitor by Tenma. so the other two had to confess that they had eavesdropped. Tenma thus gained more motivation and was further encouraged by nearby residents, becoming stronger and successfully getting closer to the centipede so the divine spirits could hit it. The centipede was then thrown into the air, and the other three rushed up to cut it into pieces, bringing victory. Tenma then received praise and encouragement from everyone. Meanwhile, Kotori reported to the judge that the person they sent had been eliminated. But for now, they didn't need to worry too much because Mugai was still protecting this place well. The next day, Tenma came to show off that he could confidently stand near a worm. But when Hibachi tested him, he nervously made his divine spirit punch all three of them away. That evening, Kotori suddenly informed Jinbei that he was about to go on a mission with Mugai, and more importantly, Mugai himself had chosen him for this mission. The next day, Jinbei excitedly went to tell Haru this good news, but accidentally tripped and fell on her, causing some uncles who were her fans to come and beat him up. Jinbei then boasted to her about being chosen by Mugai to go on a mission together and again accidentally touched her, making the uncles stand up again. Jinbei then went to say goodbye to Mugai before departing, but Mugai remained silent as usual. He didn't react no matter how Jinbei bowed or spoke to him. Kotori also spoke up, but nothing changed. When they arrived at the minister's residence for the mission, Jinbei saw many samurai who looked quite strong. He then met a servant named Yasuke who had just fallen, so he went to help. After introducing himself, Jinbei returned to Mugai's side to meet the minister. Although the minister was a person of authority, he still showed respect to Mugai, which made Jinbei admire him even more. The minister asked Jinbei some questions, but Jinbei's face was so excited that the man beside him had to remind him to introduce himself. The minister also showed respect to members of the law enforcement team like him, but Mugai wanted to know where the bug was. They were then led to the room of those who had been attacked by the bugs. Mugai recognized what kind it was, and suddenly there was a sound, so everyone rushed over. As soon as they got there, a person was being sucked by a bug, so Jinbei rushed in to handle it. He struggled quite a bit to deal with it because this one was both hard and fast. Now I realize this is a louse. Jinbei finally used his ultimate technique and successfully defeated the louse, but it was only a larva. Other lice continued to arrive, so Mugai rushed in and cut them down with just a few strikes. But it was nothing compared to when the male arrived. Mugai was confident he could handle it. Suddenly there was a scream from the kitchen, so Jinbei wanted to go save the person, but Mugai stopped him because he was still weak. However, Jinbei didn't want to appear useless, so he still ran off. The person in trouble was Yasuke, and the female louse was also there. Jinbei rushed in and gave it a push, knocking it away. He was determined not to let Mugai down. At this point, Kotori didn't understand why Mugai chose Jinbei to come along, and the minister was worried for Jinbei because the female is usually stronger than the male. But Mugai didn't care because he didn't need a teammate. He then rushed in and killed the male with one strike. Jinbei was still struggling with the female. He then rushed in and delivered a blow to its mouth, but it wasn't enough damage. He was about to do it again when its tentacles started to counterattack and even aimed at Yasuke, so he rushed in to block the attack and was rammed by the louse. He then continued to fight back but was pierced by one of its tentacles. Mugai then ran to look for him and found his sword left behind, thinking he had died. But hearing Yasuke's voice, he ran in and saw that although Jinbei was pierced by many tentacles, he was still worried about letting him down. Mugai had a different view of Jinbei and told him not to worry because he had never had expectations for him. After saying this, he unsheathed his long sword and swung it once to finish off the louse. That afternoon, Jinbei and Mugai set out on their journey back, and Yasuke expressed his deep gratitude to Jinbei. Upon returning to town, Jinbei kept asking Mugai about the reason he was chosen. Initially, he had chosen him because he was the weakest and could be replaced, but now he said he had forgotten the reason. That evening, when they returned to the mansion, someone had climbed over the wall and sneaked in. Jinbei and Hibachi, while arguing about Mugai, accidentally encountered the intruder, so they caught him and brought him to Kotori for handling. He introduced himself as Nagatomi and said he was always seeking knowledge. He had read many books and gained knowledge about everything in the world. However, he couldn't find any documents recording the knowledge about the bugs from 10 years ago. Nagatomi thought it was here and wanted to read it, so he snuck in to read secretly. But Kotori didn't allow it because that place had restricted access. It could be considered a top-secret location. Hibachi tried to take off his mask, and he was quite handsome. Kotori felt that this face looked familiar. Nagatomi then put his mask back on and made a fuss. Kotori had to go to a meeting later, so she left him in Jinbei's care. Nagatomi still insisted on going to read, so Hibachi had to knock him out to make it easier for Jinbei to watch over him. Jinbei then took him home, but he woke up midway and demanded to walk on his own. On the way back, Nagatomi accidentally passed by and saw a mosquito sucking someone's blood, but he thought it was just a dream, not reality. The mosquito then flew to Nagatomi, and at that moment, Jinbei ran over. He fought with the mosquito, but it kept targeting Nagatomi, so Jinbei had to take a hit for him. Nagatomi now realized this was reality, and after a long time of not leaving the house, he felt this was the first time someone had shed blood for him. Jinbei wanted Nagatomi to use his knowledge to show him how to defeat the mosquito because he couldn't beat it at all. Seeing Jinbei trust him reminded him of his past self. He was the son of a lord but didn't like issues related to physical activities, so he was seen as incompetent by his clan. Then he found a set of books in the warehouse and became interested in them, so he immersed himself in reading and learning about everything, abandoning this world full of deceit. Nagatomi still couldn't fully grasp reality, but he knew he would help Jinbei and not let his acquired knowledge become meaningless. Nagatomi ran to find straw and mugwort to burn, as it would slow down the mosquito and thus help Jinbei successfully cut down the mosquito before the other three arrived. The group then went to the inn to have a drink. When everyone had gone to sleep, Nagatomi planned to return the next day to thank Jinbei for saving his life, but he felt awkward about it. Realizing he had a chance to sneak into the book warehouse, Nagatomi decided to run away. He snuck in and rummaged around inside. While making everything messy, he accidentally found a scroll containing a map of Japan with half of it crossed out. Kotori suddenly came in, and he realized Nagatomi's true identity, that he was the next generation's shogun. In other words, he was the owner of almost the entire city. The part crossed out on the scroll was still under investigation. Kotori cut the scroll and made a deal that he wouldn't reveal Nagatomi's identity in exchange for Nagatomi not disclosing what he had seen to anyone. This was related to the spies they had sent out but couldn't return. Kotori wanted him to keep it a secret and not come back here. But Nagatomi set a condition that he would come here every day to meet Jinbei and keep the secret. Just as Kotori agreed and was glad that Jinbei had befriended even the next generation's shogun, Hibachi ran in and kicked Nagatomi for daring to sneak in here when everyone was distracted. Summer then arrived. Suddenly, at the foot of Mount Fuji, a giant beetle of enormous size appeared. It carried almost an entire forest as it moved. Meanwhile, Jinbei's group still didn't know about this and was eagerly waiting for tonight's festival. Nagatomi wanted to tell Jinbei more about the festival, but he was busy and ignored him. The giant beetle appeared every summer, so everyone was already prepared to welcome it. And the person responsible for handling this was always Mugai. Nagatomi was worried that it would devastate the entire city, but Kotori was completely calm. The beetle had thrown a wave of earth and rocks towards the city, but Tenma had smashed them to pieces. Hibachi and Shundiku took care of the rest. They only handled this to evacuate the citizens and prevent major impacts on houses. Jinbei, like Nagatomi, didn't know about this, so he was still at the mansion running around looking for everyone. The other three were evacuating the citizens when Tenma mentioned Jinbei, and Hibachi suddenly remembered. Kotori had informed Nagatomi that every summer, a beetle of this size would appear. and Mugai would be the one to fight it while others would evacuate the citizens. This was an annual event and nothing too extraordinary. Mugai was excited to have a stronger opponent than last year. Jinbei accidentally met a girl there. She said she wanted to find a place to watch fireworks but wasn't allowed to leave, so Jinbei thought she was the daughter of some nobleman. Mugai had tied up and flipped the beetle over so it couldn't move further. Hearing the rumbling sound but not knowing what it was, Jinbei was told by the girl that others were testing fireworks. The girl then turned away, and Jinbei decided to invite her to find a place to watch the fireworks. Hibachi came to inform Kotori that everyone had been evacuated, and she was about to go help Mugai. But Nagatomi also tagged along, forcing Kotori to follow to protect the future shogun. Back to the battle, Mugai was fighting and planned to cut off the beetle's proud horn. The citizens were all on the mountain, drinking and watching him fight. Since this happened every year, everyone was used to it. When the beetle tried to fly up, Mugai detached his sword, swung it around to create a shield, then launched it into its horn and pulled it back. At the same time, he shrank the sword to let the inertia pull him forward. As he flew towards it, he swung his sword and managed to saw off its horn. Jinbei, after spending a day with the girl looking for something to view the fireworks on, couldn't find any mat, but the girl managed to find one herself. They chose a watchtower as a good viewing spot. After cutting off the horn, Mugai's sword absorbed it, causing the blade to grow larger, and with one strike, he finished off the beetle. That night, fireworks were launched, and Jinbei watched with the girl. Jinbei had never seen fireworks before, and the girl apologized for not letting him watch with his teammates, but he didn't mind. The finale was a firework made by Hibachi herself. The girl gave Jinbei a bell as a reward for helping her watch. Just as Jinbei noticed the beetle and thought it was a hill, the girl had disappeared. That night, all the high-ranking officials like Kotori returned to report to the judge. As expected, the girl Jinbei met earlier was that judge. According to the plan, at this time each year, the judge would leave her position for a while, and the insect hunting group would target her during this time. They summoned numerous insects to keep them busy. Everyone was exhausted, but Jinbei still tried to appear energetic despite his dark eye circles. As bugs came again, the other three went ahead, while Kotori told Jinbei to rest for a while to regain strength. The woman from the hunting group had her eye on him. As he walked around, he met a girl who had fallen nearby. He helped her and was about to leave, but she said she was lost, so he had to take her. She introduced herself as Mitsuki and was actually from the insect hunting group. They spent an entire session together, and she wanted Jinbei to like her. She found him quite childish, so it would be easy to lure him. She intentionally lured him to a place far from the insects and even used tears to persuade him. But halfway across the bridge, seeing Mugai, she caused the eel of a nearby uncle to fall into the water so Jinbei would jump down to retrieve it. Mugai saw Mitsuki and knew what she was doing, but he advised her that she had chosen the wrong target. They left again, and Mitsuki began to question Jinbei about his superiors. Just then, Jinbei met Haru again, which made Mitsuki angry as Jinbei was captivated by Haru instead of her. The difference in bust size caused a noticeable difference in Jinbei's treatment, forcing her to change her plan. That night, she kidnapped Haru. The next morning, while others wanted Jinbei to do well in his work, he noticed a crowd nearby. Upon asking, he learned that Haru had gone missing. Mitsuki approached again, wearing Haru's clothes. The young man remained naive until she directly stated that she had kidnapped Haru and Jinbei must come alone to rescue her, or her insects would devour Haru. She then summoned insects to emerge, and the other three only now noticed that Jinbei had disappeared. Jinbei arrived at the location, and Mitsuki appeared. She wanted him to reveal the judge's whereabouts, but he didn't know as he was just a new recruit. He promised to return and ask Kotori, but she thought he was going back for reinforcements, so she pushed him into a pit. As he tried to climb up, a bug chased him down. He met Haru again, and Mitsuki realized how foolish she was to try and use someone as simple as him. She then played a flute to command ants to attack. Haru tried to help by kicking Mitsuki, but ended up falling herself, with Jinbei rushing to catch her. Mitsuki began dropping houses into the pit and creating quicksand below. Jinbei thought of stacking the houses to climb up. When he reached Mitsuki's level, he still believed she was good-hearted and must be under threat from someone. Finding him hopelessly stupid, she called all her insects back. Jinbei managed to handle the situation and protect Haru until the other three tracked them down and rescued them. They successfully dealt with the bugs, with no one knowing why the insects had gathered there. Jinbei and the others then returned. Mitsuki met with Mugai and realized she had indeed chosen the wrong person. But that wasn't what Mugai meant. Mugai always said things that made others think, while Mitsuki decided she wouldn't forget Jinbei. The insect hunting group set out without Mitsuki. They went to the dock to hire a boat, but the people there said there was nothing on the island they were heading to. Sensing that these people knew something about the island, the three attackers assaulted them and were executed. When Kotori's side heard the news, they mobilized all forces to support the judge. Jinbei wondered who would protect this place, and Kotori revealed that if anything happened to the judge, all of Edo would be flattened in a day. But as soon as they boarded the ship, insects immediately attacked. Jinbei wanted to go back because Haru's shop was nearby, but Kotori didn't allow it as the judge was more important. Fortunately, the minister's samurai group stayed behind to protect the city. They wouldn't let these bugs run wild in the shogun's city. They had to place their trust in the samurai. A while later, as the group was about to reach the island where the judge was resting, a hunter was waiting for them and destroyed their ship. This man was Manako, as strong as Mugai. Upon hearing he was a hunter, Shungiku rushed to avenge her mother. The others tried to reach the island, but Manako wouldn't let anyone pass. Hibachi and Jinbei managed to escape using gliders, so they were temporarily entrusted with the most important mission. On the ship, a barrage of cannons hit Manako, wounding him significantly. Shungiku didn't finish him off, wanting to preserve her title of 99 kills, so she ran to Kotori's ship and the others. The hunting group had almost reached the judge, but she realized and used a poisonous mist to hold them back. They had prepared antidotes, so they continued to advance. As Hibachi and Jinbei were flying in, they were discovered, and their gliders were punctured. Jinbei couldn't hold on and fell right where the judge was. But he only thought she was the judge's attendant. He kept interrupting, preventing her from explaining, so she just accepted the role of a servant. She was confident the poisonous mist would hold, saying the judge was still safe. Hibachi encountered a hunter who easily detonated Hibachi's bombs from afar and wouldn't let Hibachi continue for long. They taunted each other, and Hibachi was kicked hard. Back to Jinbei, as he tried to imagine what kind of person the judge was, the judge pretended to agree with him. He thought the judge must be very strong to want to live here, but the judge only wanted to live here forever to avoid affecting others. However, Jinbei's optimism intrigued her, and she felt that with him around, she wouldn't be bored anymore. At the right moment, the hunter had infiltrated and the judge had used acid to block his attack. She had to pull them away from Jinbei's location to keep him safe. The Kotori group also encountered one, but Shungiku saw that he wasn't the one who killed his mother, so he left him for Tenma to handle. Back to the judge's location, no matter where they fought, Jinbei still tried to follow her. The hunters also ignored Jinbei and only targeted the judge. As for Shungiku, passing by, he encountered Mugai fighting with one of them. He revealed that Mugai was once the leader of the hunters group, causing Shungiku to suspect that Mugai might have killed his mother. Mugai only dodged and blocked attacks without retaliating, so the other guy took the opportunity to escape. Back to Jinbei, the judge suspected him of being a spy as he always interfered when she launched attacks. Moreover, the hunters didn't even bother with him. But she was wrong because Jinbei was just too weak to be worth bothering about. Jinbei had also stood up to block attacks for her because he wanted her to tell the judge to run away. But Jinbei couldn't face them all alone, so he was beaten severely and passed out. On Mugai's side, he had proven himself by standing still for Shungiku to strike without resisting. Shungiku wanted to hear the whole story clearly, so Mugai said they would deal with it later. Meeting the judge again, she realized she was wrong to suspect Jinbei. She was no longer human, as her toxic nature would kill anyone who touched her. That's why people feared her and gave her the position of judge to exploit that ability. She had also reassured herself by fabricating reality. But now she had met someone like Jinbei and decided to protect him at all costs. She transformed into her true form, but they knew they couldn't defeat her, so they had a plan to counter. They shot an arrow at her, but she was confident she could block it with her acid armor. However, this arrow had another one inside, and it penetrated through. That arrow sealed her power, and they said it was made from dozens of different insect species and forged with their sweat, bones, and blood. She knew she wouldn't survive, but she realized Jinbei was about to wake up, so she ran a bit farther to make them forget about him. But the one who had fought with Tenma's group came back and realized Jinbei was still alive. The judge wanted them to spare Jinbei. Seeing that Jinbei was important to her, they wanted to kill him even more. Fortunately, Mugai arrived in time. Seeing that Jinbei had wholeheartedly protected the judge, he praised him for doing very well. Mugai had rushed in and single-handedly fought the whole group. When the ones who came later tried to sneak attack, the Katori group had also arrived, and Tenma had pulled the judge and Jinbei out of the battle. Shungiku had joined Mugai, hoping to eliminate the one who had killed his mother, and it was this masked man who confessed that he was the one who did it. Shungiku felt he was about to have his 100th victim, so he prepared to change his nickname. Mugai couldn't block them all and could only hold back 3 of them, so the rest chased after the Katori group. Shungiku's sword broke after one strike, so he stopped to take a sip of alcohol before continuing. He used 3 swords, but held 2 in one hand instead of putting one in his mouth like some green-haired guy who often gets lost. His swordsmanship broke this guy's weapon and then delivered a final blow to finish him off. And now he was the 100th murderer. Back to the Katori group, the judge thought he did very well in sending Jinbei. Just then, one of them jumped out and smashed the ground, causing the area to shatter. This guy and Katori both fell down the mountain. The judge and Jinbei were also separated from the other 2, so she took Jinbei away from this dangerous area. However, she didn't notice that Jinbei was experiencing a very strange phenomenon. After going a distance, the judge was chased by another one, who, according to the current leader, was the most devoted to the mission. He was about to launch a fatal strike when Jinbei stood up to save her. However, now Jinbei seemed to be awakening his latent power. His speed and physical strength improved dramatically. He went to pick up a sword without paying attention to the other guy. When he shot fire from his blade, Jinbei quickly circled behind and killed him with one strike. The hunters group saw that things weren't going well, so the leader sent someone to support the other side. And now the current and former leaders of the hunters group would have a chance to confront each other. Jinbei noticed there were still many enemies around, so he set off and left the judge there. Katori still couldn't climb up because she had to face this guy. Tenma was about to be defeated because his puppet had been shot to pieces. Fortunately, Shungiku arrived and dealt with this guy nicely. But 2 henchmen sent by the leader also came to ambush all 3 of them. The other guy who wasn't dead yet woke up and pointed his gun at all 3. He fired a whole magazine, but Jinbei stepped in to catch all the bullets. However, after that, he turned to attack his teammates, but he still prioritized the enemies first. His ponytail turned into a hand and grabbed those 3 guys. He slammed them down hard, and that tail started shooting spikes in all directions. The judge tried to reach him to stop him, but was caught by one guy who took the chance to eliminate her. But the sound of her bell awakened Jinbei. He rushed to attack that guy and returned to his normal state. But after that, he was exhausted and fell asleep. The leader saw that the situation was not good, so he called for the rest of the group to retreat. The judge saw her hair in Jinbei's mouth, so she suspected that she might be related to his awakening and loss of control. When the others returned and saw Jinbei lying on the judge's lap, they thought he was being somewhat disrespectful. Hibachi was about to teach him a lesson, but the judge stopped her. The hunters then went to find the remaining enemies. The one who fought Kotori was severely injured and his fate was unknown. Kotori was not injured at all, so we can see that although we don't know how he fought, we know he's not weak at all, otherwise he wouldn't be the captain of the law enforcement team. The whole Mushibujo group had completed their mission and decided to return. But a larger force had also appeared, and they were still targeting the judge. They called her princess and said they would come to pick her up when their lord wakes up. And when that happens, he himself, Sanada, will personally take her away. Upon returning, everyone realized that the entire city of Edo was engulfed in flames. The samurai group couldn't defeat all the bugs, and many soldiers were injured. Nagatomi also wanted to use his knowledge to help, but was always prevented. Haru was captured by the bugs while protecting the children. Fortunately, Jinbei once again arrived in time. Jinbei's father had also come down from the mountain, and with just one leg, he had taken down a mountain of bugs. Meeting his father again, he taught Jinbei another lesson that he must always be ready to fight and not let his guard down in any situation. He checked his son's technique, and that night everyone had a party to celebrate the victory. Jinbei didn't remember what happened on the island, but no one was allowed to tell because Kotori said he needed to find out more. Jinbei wanted to meet the judge, but still didn't have enough authority. That night, the father and son talked to each other. Jinbei felt that he was still too weak and had damaged the honor of the family technique. But his father called him a fool for trying to protect something when he hadn't even mastered the sword technique yet. He advised him to practice more, and tomorrow he would take him on a training trip. As for the judge, she had informed Mugai about how her hair had caused changes in Jinbei and suspected that Jinbei might also be an insect hunter like Mugai. She had now started to become uncomfortable with loneliness, so she sneaked out to find Jinbei. She saw him practicing and was about to run out, but when she saw him talking to Haru, she hid away. He decided he must become stronger to protect the judge and this city. Then the next day, Jinbei set off for training. Both father and son had overcome countless difficulties to climb Mount Fuji, and he decided to teach him the technique he invented when he was young, but the son kept interrupting, so he punched him once. Because Kotori only gave him 3 days to practice, he taught Jinbei the first ultimate technique, which was to use the sword but strike down like a hammer. He then caused Mount Fuji to be on the verge of eruption and gave his son 3 days to learn that technique and strike at this position to stop it before the city below the mountain was burned down. It had taken him 5 years to learn, so he hoped his son could learn it in 3 days. But after a whole day of practice, Jinbei could only cut rocks, but couldn't make the hammering strike like his father. On the night of the second day, the father saw that he indeed inherited his wife's dexterity. He decided to sing a lullaby to help him sleep. On the morning of the last day, as soon as Jinbei woke up, the lava had reached the foot of the mountain. His father said this was his last chance. He focused and prepared to face this challenge. He parted the lava to both sides and ran to the middle of the mountain, then delivered the hammering strike. The lava then slowly flowed down. After that, his father demonstrated the next skill, the lava vortex. This would be the next skill he had to learn, but now time was up, so he promised to try to learn that technique. The judge now remembered what Jinbei had said, that their statuses were still too far apart, and if she met him now, he would be scrutinized. But he still hoped that he would become stronger so he could have an audience with the judge and keep the promise he made on the island, which now made her set a goal to wait for the day he would be granted an audience with her. Meanwhile, at Osaka Castle, which was also the place Nagatomi had seen on the map before, the half-bug people, also known as insect humans, had occupied the entire place, and half of Japan could now be considered their territory. While Jinbei was away training, an insect human sent by Sanada appeared in the city. He went down to the streets to ask about the law enforcement team's headquarters, but he asked a drunk person and didn't get an answer, so he ate the citizen. Meanwhile, Katori was being scolded by her superior, Yuri, because at this critical time, the entire law enforcement team was on leave. The reason was that when Jinbei went for training, the other three also acted up and took leave on their own, so now Katori was short-staffed. But Yuri took Katori out to show off. At that time, Jinbei and his father were on their way back when they accidentally saw injured citizens being brought in. An old man informed them that his village had been attacked by a group of insect humans and wiped out in an instant, and that group was now flying towards Edo. Jinbei was lost in thought, so his father punched him and told him to hurry up. Katori and Yuri had now encountered that insect human, and he had already eaten quite a few people. He recognized them as members of the law enforcement team and asked about Jinbei, but neither of them understood what he meant, so he lunged out to attack. Fortunately, the samurai team had arrived to respond. Katori was assigned to go help the surviving citizens and leave the two commanders to fight. They were no match for the insect human. No matter how they attacked, it didn't affect him at all. So Yuri ordered cannon fire. Even though he took dozens of cannon shots head-on, it didn't cause any damage except breaking his mask. He then turned back to deal with the two commanders, and just as he was about to execute Yuri, Jinbei returned to confront him. He recognized Jinbei as the one he was looking for, so he rushed to fight. Jinbei was now fast enough to keep up with his speed and successfully cut him in half. But he used a technique and split into two. They thought this was an illusion, so Jinbei blocked, but both were real, and when he cut both in half, he split again. He kept attacking and multiplying more and more to overwhelm Jinbei. Just when he was in trouble, the other three returned. They had also had a short training period and joined the battle. They thought they had cleared them all, but the insect humans split into even more. Everyone had tried their own techniques, but none of them worked. Shungiku thought they should retreat, but if they retreated now, the citizens would be in danger. Suddenly, they discovered that some couldn't revive, and the common point of those was that they were all hit hard on the head. Knowing the weakness, Jinbei quickly came up with a plan. He told everyone to stay away, and the bugs gathered around him. Jinbei used the technique he learned and smashed them all with one strike. Everyone was surprised that in just over 3 days, Jinbei had become this strong. After the battle, Katori saw that what he was worried about had come true. The insect humans had really come to Edo. In a nearby village, the insects had arrived and started massacring the people there. The most elite insect humans, called the 10 Insect Champions, were all present here and massacred the villagers into mountains, leaving one to grind the corpses. A meeting then had to be organized among high-ranking officials. Everyone was worried about the insect humans sweeping through Edo, but the shogun believed that the judge would be able to handle them. The shogun still had to keep secret from the ministers that the judge's power was sealed to prevent them from panicking, but the judge was also ready to sacrifice her life to end them because they appeared due to her. Nagatomi was making a fuss outside because he wanted to hear what was being discussed inside to tell Jinbei. Hearing Jinbei's name, the judge ordered to meet him. They both went into Nagatomi's library, which was full of Jinbei's pictures. He originally didn't trust the judge and suspected she wanted to steal his knowledge. But when he heard the judge say she knew Jinbei, he agreed to ally with her. Both knew the other was hiding their true identity to approach Jinbei. Nagatomi then told the judge to follow him. They then went to observe Jinbei through a telescope. Jinbei was now being pressed down by Haru's 2 melons. Jinbei asked the other 3 about their days off. Hibachi went back to the village to train. Shungiku was a bit bored, so he went to fight with robbers, and Tenma's was a secret. Jinbei's father then appeared and thought Haru was very suitable for his son, so he suggested marriage. Hibachi and the judge both trembled with anger when they heard this. He remembered his wife because when they first met, it was also in this city. Jinbei wanted to hear more about his mother because she had died early when he was young. When he first came to Edo, he met Jinbei's mother. They both saw each other as worthy opponents, so they decided to duel, and then became closer, which led to Jinbei. End of story. But everyone wanted him to tell more details, so he continued that they fought tirelessly from place to place. The city was also damaged quite a bit just because of their battle, and Jinbei's super fast learning ability came from his mother. For a whole year, they were still evenly matched. But during that time of fighting, they both fought and confessed their love to each other, which led to Jinbei. Although they didn't raise Jinbei together, he had grown up exactly as they wanted. The judge observed all of this and realized something, so she asked Nagatomi where his father would usually hide treasures. What she needed was information about the insects in there, but Nagatomi took out a copy of the map he had memorized when he sneaked into the law enforcement team's archives. Looking at it, the judge seemed to know the place she needed to find to unseal her power. That night, the shogun heard that the corpse of the dead insect human had been stolen. His head was still alive and was being taken away by one of the 10 insect champions. But this one took it away to prevent humans from exploiting anything from him, not intending to let him live. Meanwhile, the judge had come to see the shogun and told him how she could restore her power. But the shogun and his retainer were worried about her because she no longer had power, so going alone would be very dangerous. She decided to let the retainer go with her and added one more condition. The next day, Jinbei was called to go with the judge. He waited for a long time without seeing anyone he needed to escort, so he thought he was at the wrong place, but the judge had been waiting for him here. He still thought she was just an attendant of the judge. As soon as they left the city, the insect humans showed up. Sanada announced that he wanted to meet the shogun of this place. Jinbei at this time was curious about his mission, but neither of them answered. On the way, Jinbei thought the retainer following them was the judge, so the real judge had to explain that he was the southern shogun, and there was a rumor that he was the smartest person in Edo. Meanwhile, Sanada had come to meet the local lord. He proposed that the lord build him a ship that could carry 1,000 people without any problems, and in return, he would withdraw all troops from this land. Because this place had good wood and carpenters, that was all he needed. Hearing that the deal was beneficial for the people, the lord agreed to listen, because Sanada had assured that he would not break his promise. Back to Jinbei's journey, everything he did was criticized by this southern shogun, from walking to helping people. He thought that if Jinbei went to help someone, and it turned out to be a trap, what then, because this girl's life was the highest priority mission? He then continued to criticize the things Jinbei did as meaningless and claimed that Jinbei were not suitable for this mission, because he believed that being a samurai means being ready even in the smallest situations, and the definition of samurai seemed too far-fetched for Jinbei, so he advised Jinbei to give up this path. He gave Jinbei one last chance. If Jinbei still couldn't prove yourself worthy, he would send Jinbei back. A while later, all three had arrived at the city and heard that the lord here didn't want to meet them. The feudal lord had revealed his identity and said if they disobeyed, the people here would be executed. But it was the lord himself who didn't allow anyone to pass through here. The reason he did this was to prevent the judge from entering because Sanada was currently stationed on this land. All three knew that no matter what they did or said, they couldn't get in, so they went around behind a slope on a mountain. The judge almost fell if the two hadn't caught her in time. Jinbei had to carry her on his back to be sure, and she felt that Jinbei should just be himself. All three had circled to the back gate of the fortress, but there were still guards here. Suddenly, an eagle swooped down and caught a snake, causing all three to be discovered by the soldiers and chased. Jinbei turned back to cut down a tree to block the way. The three then hid up in a tree and waited until nightfall to start sneaking in, but suddenly a bug human appeared and killed all the soldiers. He called himself Nedzu and was one of the 10 bug elites. He could smell them, so there was no hope of hiding. Jinbei stood up to face him so that the other two could go ahead. The feudal lord wanted him to prioritize the mission, but the judge told him to do what he wanted freely. Nedzu was about to chase after them when Jinbei rushed in to block him. The two exchanged a few moves, and this guy only aimed at weak points. He realized this guy was even harder than the fly guy from before, while Nedzu found Jinbei to be a worthy opponent. The two continued to rush in to fight, and Nedzu still had many tricks to deal with him. Meanwhile, the judge was trying to open this back door, but it was too secure. This brother wanted to know why the judge chose Jinbei to come along, because he was too childish and easily overwhelmed by emotions in the mission. Nedzu had launched eggs from his back at Jinbei, and he had to try to dodge them. The judge said Jinbei was the only one who didn't know her true identity, so she wanted to create more memories with him. He then said nothing more and just accepted to follow everything the judge said. He slashed open the door, and the judge called for Jinbei to come right away, but Nedzu wouldn't let him run, so he threw sharp points at him. He blocked them and then used 2 moves his father had taught him and defeated him. He wasn't dead yet, so he went back to report to Sanada. Hearing the news, he gave the Lord 2 choices: either bring the intruders here or he would execute everyone in this town. He knew the intruder was the judge. The next day, the Lord made a request to the people. But the people thought it was the government's business, so Sanada took out the dead bodies to threaten them into complying. He declared that if the people still wanted to see tomorrow, they should hurry to carry out the order. The Lord, though angry, had to endure. Meanwhile, Hibachi's younger sister had investigated the situation here and decided to send a secret letter to her older sister, but the little girl was discovered by a bug human. Jinbei's group now began to see wanted posters, so they had to try to disguise themselves to move around. But Jinbei's kind nature resurfaced at the wrong time when he saw an old lady injured and went to help her, only to be threatened with a knife. The old lady called everyone over, so Jinbei had to run away to lure them as far away as possible. He hid in an alley but was stabbed in the hand by a little boy. He didn't want to harm the villagers, so he tried to run away. But a group of bandits came, and they also wanted to hunt Jinbei's group. They were about to ignore the kid in the middle of the road and rush in, so the judge saved the kid, and then that brother had to come out to save the judge. The judge allowed him to take action, but not to take the lives of the bandits. He didn't take their lives, but only their hands. Then all 3 were surrounded by villagers, and they had to accept being captured by the villagers. At this time, Kotori had also sent Mugai to this province to provide support. Hibachi, at this very moment, received a secret letter from her younger sister, so it seems she will set out as well. As for the villagers, they were celebrating because Jinbei's group had helped drive away the bandits. But they still had to turn in the whole group to save their lives. Just then, 2 members of the 10 bug elites came to look for the wanted people. Seeing no one come out to answer, they took Hibachi's sister, who had just been caught, as a hostage. With a nature more reckless than sensible, Jinbei jumped out to confront them. But alone, he only managed to save the little girl and was ganged up on by these 2. One rushed at him from the front while the other bit him from behind, resulting in Jinbei being pinned down by this silkworm. The other one wanted to punish the villagers for daring to collude with wanted criminals. But that brother came out to call Jinbei to continue fighting because now he would join him. He slowly lifted this silkworm up, and both decided to split up to fight. Jinbei would handle the silkworm while he would deal with this dragonfly. The silkworm still intended to target the village chief and Hibachi's sister, so he ran out to block and push him away. When the dragonfly tried to bite him sneakily, the feudal lord was behind to support him. He realized that coordinating with Jinbei was difficult, so he told him to do whatever he liked while he would support him. He then neatly trimmed this dragonfly. As for the silkworm, Jinbei used a crushing move that made its shell now its fatal weak point. The villagers then thanked both of them. The village chief now wanted to ask why Jinbei's group came here. The lord was now under a well, and he was determined not to let the bug humans know about this place. During that time, the ship that Sanada had ordered the Lord to make for him was almost complete. The bug humans came to inspect, terrifying the workers. They didn't know why those 2 hadn't returned yet, but they still thought those 2 wouldn't lose to humans. The next day, Jinbei accidentally met Hibachi again in front of the local landlord's house. After an awkward moment of recognition, Hibachi said the reason she came was to support Jinbei's group. Meeting the judge again, Hibachi tried to reveal her true identity, but she corrected herself, saying she was just a maid. Hibachi reluctantly went along with it. Going inside to meet the landlord, the feudal lord asked if he was willing to risk his life for them. This landlord thought for a moment and decided to help them. He then devised a plan that would only take place over 3 days. The bug humans also began to kill people because they couldn't find Jinbei and the others. Jinbei then reunited with Shungaku and Tenma. Mugai arrived right after and told Jinbei to go with him for a while. That night, the judge asked Hibachi how she felt about Jinbei. Although she still put Mugai first, she still saw many good points in Jinbei. As for Mugai, he had asked Jinbei if he knew the judge's purpose in bringing them all here. But when he realized Jinbei still didn't know the judge's true face, he turned away. Jinbei then went to meet the judge again, and they both went together to chat. Jinbei told her about the patrol team, and the judge really enjoyed hearing his stories. She noticed that Jinbei still kept the bell from when they first met. The two sat in a romantic-like manner for a while until they were interrupted by the other three, so they returned to the inn. A few days later, the ship was completed, so the feudal lord's plan was about to begin. Everyone would be divided into 3 groups. The judge's group consisted of herself, the landlord, and Mugai. The villagers' group included the whole village and Hibachi's sister. The final group was the entire enforcement team, except for Mugai. That night, on the Lord's side, he wanted Sanada to leave right after delivering the ship. But he hadn't caught the intruders yet, so he would kill everyone as punishment. The Lord knew there was no other way, so he had prepared all his forces to fight back. But his soldiers had all been slaughtered, so he considered all hope lost. The next morning, the people were gathered in one place for the bugs to prepare to feast, but the enforcement team showed up and dealt with them. That brother also appeared right after and declared a challenge to Sanada. He gave him the right to set the rules, but Sanada didn't care because his bugs would devour everyone anyway. Jinbei suggested that he was being cowardly and would rather run away. Touching his pride made him accept the challenge. He then set a rule that if they wanted to fight him, they must first defeat his subordinates. Sanada used that mountain as a starting bell, but everyone could see that he was just trying to show off his own strength. The group then went to discuss the plan once again. The judge group would go to the well where her power could be restored. The villagers group would have to try to lead the people. The law enforcement team would try to buy time for the judge group to regain their strength. The law enforcement team's battle then began. The whole group was trapped in a barrier and Jinbei accidentally got separated from the group. He was caught by Nedzu and pulled underwater. Since he was a water strider, this was a favorable environment for him. Jinbei couldn't move well underwater, so he deliberately let himself be cornered before counterattacking. The Hibachi group also encountered the leader of the insect men group. This guy was a cricket, so only Hibachi could withstand his sound, so she took responsibility for dealing with him so everyone else could continue moving forward. She knew who he was when she heard his name, and it seemed he also recognized her as a ninja from the village through the knife she was holding. Back to Jinbei, he punched so hard that all the water splashed up, so the other guy had to use his trump card of molting. He molted into a human and knew he would be punished for revealing his identity, but decided he would drag Jinbei down with him. This guy became much quicker and could use water techniques, completely overwhelming Jinbei. But just as he was about to be defeated, Jinbei remembered his father's teachings about the lava vortex technique from that time. That Jinbei must grasp the flow of the enemy's technique to use it as a tool to counterattack, because everything has its own flow. Jinbei rose up and changed the direction of the water stream to aim at that guy, then followed that water flow to fly up and finish him off to end the battle. Though defeated, that guy also warned Jinbei not to be too arrogant because there were many stronger ones than him. He told him the names of the 3 strongest ones. Jinbei also expressed his admiration for him and then went to find the others. He met up with Hibachi again. She was being trapped in a cage by the cricket guy, so Jinbei rushed up to attack him. But Hibachi blocked the attack because it was just an illusion created by that guy's wing vibrations. She realized Jinbei had defeated one of them, so she felt much more relieved. She told Jinbei to observe her and then rushed into battle. She could now move more smoothly and her mind was more at ease thanks to Jinbei. She was determined to defeat him and become the #1 ninja. She then threw a series of bombs at him, but he created ultrasonic waves to block them. She threw shuriken, but they flew right through his body. She saw that Guy had revealed a forbidden technique that belonged to the ninja village. She remembered the story her grandfather once told about someone who had killed his master and stolen the forbidden technique. Why does this sound so familiar somehow? And that person was right in front of her now. He decided to get serious and molted to fight. He released a miasma and became invisible. Hibachi was immediately chained up and burned. She stabbed herself in the leg to escape that illusion. He used another illusion to make her meet her grandfather. He took her to bandage the wound and decided to accept her efforts, thinking that after this he would stop being a ninja. But his words revealed he was fake, because her real grandfather never wanted to give up being a ninja. Unable to target Hibachi, he switched to targeting Jinbei. Jinbei was repeatedly tricked by images of Hibachi in danger and attacked her. But when she lured him to hit his head on a tree, the illusion disappeared. He was then tricked again and made to run off somewhere else to play. Hibachi was then surrounded by 4 illusions of that guy, so she used bombs to escape and was then caught from behind by him. The Shungaku group had now entered the stronghold to face the remaining enemies. Hibachi realized he created illusions by flapping his wings, but he didn't care if she discovered it or not because he had already won anyway. He tied her to a stake and started mocking Jinbei. He kept trying to climb up and falling down over and over. The more stupid he acted, the more that Guy mocked him, until he finally rose up and grabbed the illusory Hibachi, realizing it was just a tree branch. Hibachi still chose to rise up to protect him, and once again freed herself from the illusion. She realized he wasn't actually strong, while Jinbei, no longer affected by the illusion, jumped down and landed a hit on that guy. Hibachi also threw some explosive knives and successfully defeated him. But neither of them noticed that he wasn't dead and had already escaped. He burrowed down to where the judge was and merged with another body of his. He discovered that the girl before him was the princess and was going to the well to restore her power. Realizing their target was right in front of him, he went back to report this to Sanada. Hibachi and Jinbei followed Shungaku's trail, but Jinbei got caught in an illusion and saw Haru calling him, so he was lured quite far away. Shungaku and the other 2 also got caught in an illusion and ran blindly, not knowing where to go. Fortunately, after a while, they still managed to meet up with Hibachi. Shungaku taunted the insect men, so they spoke up, helping Shungaku judge the direction to strike. He rescued Jinbei and warned him that these guys were very strong. Then Shungaku was taken away by them. The group was left behind there, and the feudal lord forced them to continue. Jinbei accidentally groped Hibachi's chest, so she punched him away. He said he didn't want to be a burden, so they should go on, and he would still follow. The group then saw Shungaku outside, and he also told them to go ahead. Shungaku was warned about the molting, so he gave these 2 time to molt, saying it wouldn't be fun if it ended quickly. They thought he was being a bit arrogant, so they rushed to attack and were cut into many pieces by him. However, these 2 were cockroaches, a species considered immortal. They continuously regenerated and counterattacked. The feudal lord thought Shungaku had become weaker than before. Anyone who had known Shungaku for a long time would say the same thing. The Shungaku now and the murderer from 99 years ago were 2 completely different people. Shungaku also felt that fighting like this would never give him a chance to win, so he turned and ran. He clamped his sword between his legs to climb the wall. The others crawled up after him, but were cut down by him, because even cockroaches will fall if cut into pieces. And Jinbei know what's scarier than two cockroaches. Two cockroaches that start to spread their wings. They switched to flying, and he had cut them down, but one remaining pushed him into a nearby house. They started to molt and stopped joking around. The other guy only now explained why Shungaku was weaker because before, he had a reason to pursue and fight. When Shungaku was pursuing the goal of killing his father, he was truly a monster ready to take on anyone who stood in his way. But now that his goal was gone, his will to fight was also gone. A monster without purpose and ideals is just a nameless swordsman. They also encountered a room of cockroaches, so they had to stay to deal with them. Shungaku was now being lectured by those two about the concept of an assassin. They believed he was being hindered by the lives he had taken, but if he killed enough, life would become fragile to him. But he didn't want to become like his father, so he would always carry the burden of those lives on his hands. He remembered the image of his father who used to beat him but begged for mercy when faced with his sword. But he didn't strike his father because he didn't want to become someone like him. He chose to be an insect exterminator, not a murderer. Now he decided to unleash all his power. He slashed at supersonic speed, and the two cockroaches were reduced to dust particles that couldn't regenerate. After the battle, Shungaku sat down to rest and had a drink. Jinbei's group came to pick him up right after. They saw that now there were only 3 left and Sanada. The group then encountered a problem as there were 2 paths. So Jinbei and Tenma went one way, while the other 3 went another way. They all thought there were only 3 insect elites left because Hibachi thought she had really killed that cricket. Sanada had ordered his remaining subordinates not to show their faces if they were defeated. The ninja was currently following the judge, but hadn't acted yet. Tenma was now afraid of everything, from getting lost, dark places, narrow spaces, high places. Jinbei noticed this, but Tenma said he would calm down soon, so it was okay. Jinbei asked about Tenma's parents, and the boy said he had been separated from his parents since he was young, so he wanted to become famous to meet his parents again someday. And then both of them encountered one of the insect men group. He wanted to duel one-on-one with Tenma, so Jinbei had to temporarily stay out. This guy decided to teach Tenma about true justice and believed that he himself was the most righteous. Tenma now could gradually shape his own fighting style. One spirit god leaning towards speed would attack with full force to hold down that grasshopper, while the other spirit god leaning towards strength would be used to strike. But he always found openings to knock Tenma away, yet just before falling, he would catch Tenma to continue fighting. Gradually, Tenma was overwhelmed by his speed, but he didn't finish Tenma off, instead continuously helping him up to fight more. He then repeatedly beat Tenma. Even when Jinbei wanted to intervene, he was punched too. He wanted Tenma to stop relying on paper dolls or friends so that he could meet his family again and become truly righteous. Hibachi's group heard Tenma's screams, but the feudal lord wanted them to continue. Tenma kept being beaten repeatedly. Finally, he wanted Tenma to say that he was the true righteousness. If so, he would grant the boy a gentle death. Tenma was about to say it, but Jinbei helped him remember how hard he had tried to find his parents. Tenma recalled the memories and began to burst with power. The paper crane started turning into a paper airplane and Tenma made the dolls merge. The other guy also started to molt, but before he finished, Tenma knocked him out of the earth. Tenma then collapsed and was carried by Jinbei, but midway when he woke up, the boy hit Jinbei once and asked him to let him walk by himself. Hibachi's group now also encountered the 2 remaining insect men. The judge group had now reached the well. The feudal lord was also waiting for her there. The ninja reported back to Sanada, and he ordered to deal with everyone. But before he could act, he was discovered by Mugai. He had recognized him from the beginning, but only acted now because he wanted to ensure the judge arrived safely. On the other side, Jinbei had also arrived to support the law enforcement team. The other guy wanted everyone not to fight recklessly, but to make a plan first. Mugai had pulled the ninja outside. He wondered why an insect hunter like Mugai would join the judge. Mugai didn't say, but we could still see the flashback of when he received the mission to assassinate the judge years ago. But when he arrived, the judge didn't resist at all and stayed still for him to execute. But Mugai saw that she was also like him, not loved by anyone and not loving anyone. There was only loneliness and following given orders, and that night he joined the law enforcement team with the goal of exterminating insects. Mugai and the ninja fought and accidentally flew over to Jinbei's group. Knowing the judge had no one nearby to protect her, Jinbei and the feudal lord decided to leave this place to everyone else. When the other two didn't allow it, Hibachi threw a smoke screen for both to leave. Jinbei suspected Sanada was on the upper floor, so he asked the other guy to go to the judge while he would challenge Sanada to at least buy some time. The judge now had the well opened. The feudal lord reminded her about the ritual that she would have to endure the painful past again. But she was ready to accept and told him to continue. A pillar of light shone up. The feudal lord realized the well had opened, so he volunteered to switch positions with Jinbei and let him go to the judge. Seeing Jinbei running to the judge, Mugai decided to hold this guy here and hand it over to him. The feudal lord had gone up to face Sanada. He allowed the lord to attack first, otherwise he would move towards him. He decisively launched an attack, but the power difference was too great. One of his attacks didn't scratch Sanada, while one of Sanada's attacks was enough to injure him. Hibachi's side wasn't much better, as this stink bug was both releasing gas and spitting fire to ignite the gas just released. Tenma's spirit god had been burned, but Hibachi had to fly them both away to dodge the fire, but he shot fire arrows after them. Meanwhile, Jinbei had also reached the judge. The feudal lord had been shot and lost an arm, but he would still try to buy time. Years ago when he met the judge, she was just like a tool of the nobles to drive away insects. She was almost soulless then, but through this journey, he had seen her true emotions. He then lunged forward and had his sword broken by Sanada, but he still managed to stab him once before being struck down by a technique. He decided to place his trust in Jinbei, believing that he would be able to keep the judge safe. Meanwhile, the Hibachi group still hadn't found a way to deal with these two. The judge had now informed Jinbei about what would happen if humans and insects entered the well. Humans would die, while insects would become stronger. She was about to reveal her true identity, but was once again interrupted by Sanada. Mugai was also busy with the other one, but he was confident that he had figured out his trick. The two individuals near Hibachi had now transformed to get serious. As for Sanada, he stood talking about how he had entertained himself with the feudal lord and how samurai kept talking about justice while being unable to protect anyone. Jinbei, angered, charged at him but was blown away. Sanada knelt down, calling the judge princess, and wanted to take her to meet his master, but she refused, so he intended to force her. Jinbei had returned and used all his techniques to buy time for the judge to enter the well. He knocked Sanada up and rushed in to launch a pounding attack. The judge had entered the well and was reminded of her painful past. Sanada, despite taking 2 hits, showed no signs of being affected, making Jinbei think he had defeated him. Mugai had now figured out the trick behind the illusions and easily stabbed the other one. He took the opportunity to absorb his power and return to the well. Sanada had now gotten up and attacked again. Jinbei rushed in to launch a pounding attack, but Sanada didn't bother dodging because it was too weak. He launched his technique and shot straight into the well to let the poison down there eliminate Jinbei, but thanks to this, Jinbei accidentally saw the judge's painful past. When she was young, she had saved a bug despite many people's objections, but her parents had to indulge her wishes. Then, when the palace was attacked, she chose to save the bug instead of herself and was shot dead. But perhaps the bug had saved her by symbiosis. When she woke up, no one recognized her anymore, and wherever she went, people died. Even her parents didn't recognize her and were gradually killed by a poison. She realized she had been transformed. She looked back at the bug and saw that it had given her power, and the poisonous air around her would kill anyone who came close. Suddenly, she noticed Jinbei in front of her. She realized that Jinbei had seen her past. Just because she pitied the bug, she had brought disaster to everyone. But Jinbei said she wasn't wrong for pitying a creature. Because for him, protecting small and weak things was the right thing to do. The judge thanked him for helping her feel human warmth once again. Jinbei also thanked her for encouraging him with her smile. Hearing this, she pushed Jinbei out of the well while she continued to sink. Sanada was now pleased that the judge regaining her power was also part of his plan. Because when she regained her power, her memories would also be lost, and he would take advantage of this to sweep away mankind with her. After hearing this, Jinbei hugged the rock blocking the well to jump back down. Mugai also came to face Sanada in his place. Jinbei hugged the rock down and met the judge again. He told her what he had heard from Sanada, and she seemed somewhat regretful, but she said this was the only way. Jinbei said he would defeat Sanada for her, and they both came out of the well together. The hibachi side had now been reinforced by the bug repellent that Nagatomi had previously applied. This was their chance to counterattack. Sanada had knocked Mugai away and was chasing Jinbei. But Mugai hadn't fallen yet, so he ran to block a hit for him. Sanada was formerly a general of the judge's house, but he had been grabbed by that bug when he was pinned down by wooden beams. Mugai managed to stab him once, but he was completely unharmed. The feudal lord chose that moment to blow up the wall under their feet, hoping to bury Sanada, but it was useless and even buried Mugai. After dealing with the old man, Sanada flew to intercept Jinbei. Jinbei still tried to resist, only to be stabbed by him. He didn't kill him outright, but choked him to force the judge back to the well. She reluctantly agreed to save Jinbei's life. Kotori had now arrived to support the hibachi group. He said he would take care of these two, and the three of them should go support Jinbei. Sanada let the judge enter on her own without forcing her. She wanted him not to harm Jinbei. He agreed to the deal, so she jumped in. An energy pillar erupted, causing the two outside to rush in confidently, only to be finished off by Kotori in one move. When the judge came out of the well, she was in the form of a white butterfly instead of a moth. Sanada was shocked at this sight. The Kotori group arrived right after and attacked Sanada, but it was still useless. Then suddenly, the judge stabbed Jinbei from behind. Jinbei saw writing on her hand and wanted her to look and remember, but she couldn't remember at all. Sanada took advantage of this to attack Jinbei and told the judge to return to meet his lord. Sanada absorbed all the power from the well and summoned a multitude of bugs. Jinbei still didn't give up and charged straight in, only to have his sword broken and receive countless wounds. He was even hit by a beam to the head. The other four also charged in, but even after unleashing a barrage of techniques, Sanada remained unscathed. The energy flowing from the two insect men was gathering around Jinbei. Mugai had to come up as there was no way back. Mugai managed to break through the armor, so Sanada switched to attacking. Countless bugs were summoned. Sanada discovered that Mugai was still injured, so he targeted him first. And once again, Jinbei appeared to save the day in his half-demon form like before. After investigating, Kotori learned that Jinbei's mother was an insect hunter like Mugai, and she had been cursed by the eternal insect. The eternal insect was also the one that gave the judge her power, so when Jinbei came into contact with its power, his body would react. The previous time, it was because Jinbei had swallowed the judge's hair that he awakened. This time, it was direct contact with that energy. But in Jinbei's mind, the voice of that insect appeared, and he decided not to let it manipulate him like before. Mugai helped him regain consciousness when he saw the image of him shining like at the beginning. But now the judge had joined the fight, so Jinbei asked to fight her. While the others were struggling with Sanada, Jinbei was trying to get close to the judge and absorb all the poison she was spewing out. He managed to grab her hand, helping her feel that warmth again, and gradually her memories returned and she remembered everything. However, Jinbei also collapsed from inhaling too much poison. The judge returned to the right side and helped fight Sanada. He was still single-handedly taking on the whole group. and he thought that if he killed Jinbei, the whole group would lose their fighting spirit. But just as he shot a beam down, Jinbei woke up and charged. Sanada quite praised his resilience for being able to fight so well despite being poisoned. But just one slip-up and this whole area would turn to dust. The others dealt with the bugs below while leaving Jinbei alone with Sanada. He used his ultimate technique to create a whirlwind, then summoned a dragon to charge up, and finally finished with a meteor shower. The battle ended after 3 moves and the sky returned to normal. Jinbei also returned to normal, and after the battle, everyone set off to return to Edo. The judge was about to confess her identity when Jinbei interrupted because he wanted to one day show the judge this sky. The judge did this with him but still kept that secret without revealing it. The group then returned to Edo and the film ends here.